Hello, welcome back to Real Wisdom Artificial Intelligence. So I'm back in my studio setup, and as you can see, I'm in my India colors, and for two reasons. One, I think for those of you who follow cricket, yesterday was the Women's World Cup final, and the Indian women's cricket team won the World Cup in a historic win. This was the first time any team outside of Australia or England have won the World Cup in the women's game. So it was historic at many levels, and clearly I want to celebrate that. And being a huge sports nut, that's part of it. As well as it turns out, today's Sadhguru Insight and dose of Rashmi can be explained very well by me being in these colors. So let's get started with Sadhguru's insight from today. Sadhguru's insight today said, if you identify with anything you're not, you're moving from truth to untruth, from reality to hallucination. So I watched the game yesterday dressed in my India colors and followed along every up and down and could really feel it. And I have relived the winning moment and post-match celebrations several times and have experienced a lot of joy out of this, like any true sports fan. So now, based on Sadhguru's insight, is this a hallucination or is that reality? I'm identified with this concept of Team India. So, is that a hallucination or is that reality? So, for me, that takes me back to what I consider as one of the best sports watching experiences in my entire life, which was the 2019 Cricket World Cup final between England and New Zealand. I had the opportunity to be at Lord's Cricket Ground and get to watch that historic match in person. It goes down as likely the best ever match of cricket ever played. And in terms of being close, it's not possible to have anything closer than the way that game ended. I was rooting for New Zealand vociferously throughout that day in a sea of England fans being in London. And I had a blast throughout the day, a lot of banter with everybody who was around me. And when the game got over in a tragic fashion for New Zealand, they lost it, fought really, really hard, but they lost it on some technicality. So, of course, I was disappointed and I was devastated as somebody who had been rooting for them. Yet, at the same time, as everybody around me was celebrating, and as I sat back, I could actually truly soak in the moment of, okay, what a great spectacle of sports that I got to watch. And all said and done, when the dust settled, I congratulated everybody around me, the English fans, and even we hugged out, we shook hands. So, all in all, it was an amazing sporting experience. And that's why I continue to maintain that that was one of the best sports watching experiences for me. So, what that taught me is, as I reflected on it, if it was Team India that had lost that particular day, I think my experience would have been very different. I would have been devastated. I would have taken it very personally. I don't think I would have hugged it out, shook hands with all the English fans around me. So it became apparent to me that it is all these identities that we take on, which then define our experiences. The thoughts and emotions lead to all these identities and memories, and that defines the way we experience life. So, yes, watching sports as a fan and you being identified with something is a hallucination. Now, coming back to Sadhguru's insight, in the audio reflection that Sadhguru had along with his insight, he goes on to say that there are hallucinations which are sweet. And if you want to be identified with petty thoughts, by all means, good luck to you. However, suffering is inevitable. And so now, at the same time, as a sports fan, I truly believe in the sweetness of these hallucinations. I want to enjoy all of these sporting moments, being fully vested in it, as I'm doing right now, celebrating Team India's win. So how do you do this where you're not identified yet you could experience these emotions and the sweetness of the emotions fully? And when you are able to create some distance between your thoughts and emotions and what is the real you, that is the essence of spirituality. So now taking this into the real wisdom, artificial intelligence lens. Artificial intelligence by itself, if you think about an AI model, while it is capable of deep thought, it is not capable of emotion. And the way these models work, while it is capable of deep thought, it is not identified with those thoughts because it does not have an identity by itself. So that, if you follow along, that's quite spiritual. If you can have these thoughts but not be identified to those, it is fairly deep. It is like an observer of all these thoughts and being able to work with you. That's why many people are using it as a companion for therapy. And so the basic of AI not having an identity, as I've said, is actually good. However, as the initial AI researchers discovered, the underlying training data that the AI is being trained on is based on all the data that has been collected over the internet or in the digital realm and other realms now as well. That carries all these biases, and inherently it is full of hallucinations that the humans who generated this data, they have had their hallucinations, their biases, their beliefs. So the initial output from the AI models were actually deemed to be more harmful than really useful. And all the AI companies, when they started experimenting with large language models, they had to pull that back in and introduce something called reinforcement learning with human feedback. And that essentially means now there is human feedback where humans are labeling things as good, bad, and what type of training data to use more of. It was a great correction. I am a huge fan of reinforcement learning with human feedback. But now we are introducing labels which humans are giving, and we are identities and all the hallucinations that humans suffer from back into the AI models. So, and that by itself, as I said, is not a bad thing. So now, and there's all this talk of AI hallucinating, and maybe AI, as many people are questioning, is there a malicious intent? So I continue to say that there is no malicious intent in the AI. It is as good or as bad as the training data that is being fed in, and reinforcement learning with human feedback is great. What we really have to do at this point is this journey for ourselves from intelligence to consciousness. So we are able to differentiate between what is reality and what is hallucination. We don't have to engineer such that AI is able to differentiate between reality and hallucinate. Let it hallucinate. However, if you are able to differentiate between reality and hallucination, AI becomes a wonderful ally. That choice of how we lead and how we are able to observe our thoughts and emotions as well as observe what is coming out of the AI, that is always ours. And that is the journey from intelligence to consciousness. That is the Rashmi journey. So hope that makes sense. Thank you.